so much for joining me. If you haven't been here before, my name is Tracy, and this is a DIY upcycling channel where we take thrifted, unwanted items, breathe new life into them, and create fun clothes, purses, and accessories. Now today, I'm just kind of winging it, and when I sold, this is the kind of thing I would do. I would just come down and play in my space, and hopefully what I create comes out beautiful. So I have this jean skirt, pre-owned. I have this thrifted Old Navy white blouse. Now I want to turn them into sort of a boho outfit I want to add some movement and some shape with tablecloths, a lace one and a linen one, and just do a little bit of decorating. And then I'm going to dye the whole thing. Okay, I had to go get my dye. This is Rit Apple Green for natural fabrics. Now, I want to dye this for 3 reasons mainly: to unify everything. Plus, it's getting close to St. Patrick's Day, and what a fun idea. Just if you don't have a St. Patrick's outfit, if you don't do something like this, maybe you just have a pair of white jeans or white pants and a white blouse, you can dye it green. Now, I chose apple green because I saw one of my online friends dye Julie, her duster this color, and it was so gorgeous and so springy. She used a Rit Color Fast fixative. I don't have any, but I'm certainly going to try that probably next dyeing project. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start with the skirt. I need to cut some off the bottom, and I tried it on and I stuck a pin right below my knee to mark it. Now here's my pin. I measured it. I can take it out. It's 8 inches up from the bottom. So I am just going to take my tailor's chalk, a ruler, and make dashes around the front and back of the skirt at 8 inches. Now that I have my dashes on the front and the back, I'm just going to cut along that line and cut the bottom part off. Now that I have the bottom cut off, I'm just going around and making jagged edges. Okay, before you scream, not another flower applique, let me give you my thought process here. So I am just going to do this only, this flower I cut out of a curtain on this skirt. And my plan is when it's all dyed, this is going to look very subtle, almost like it was an old painting on the skirt or maybe a printed denim or something like that. This will not scream flower applique. So I'm going to get this pinned on, and I am going to sew all around the edges with a fairly small straight stitch, and I am going to use green thread on everything because I'm dyeing it green. So here's what we have so far. A little bit of a jagged bottom, a little bit of a flower decoration. And now I just want to add some lace to the bottom. Lace I'm going to use is this thrifted lace tablecloth. And I'm going to have my fingers crossed that this is cotton or high cotton blend, or my dye will not dye it. Now I am just going around all 4 edges, and I'm going to cut an 8.5 strip. If I go all the way around, I'm going to have a really long strip. Now I will measure the 8.5 inches, but I don't really know how much I'll need. If that isn't enough, I can go back in and cut another 8.5 inch strip. So I will get to cutting. Okay, now I have my strip cut, And where I went around the corners of the tablecloth, they kind of look like that. I'm going with it because that will add interest. Okay, I'll show you how I sew it onto the skirt. What I will do is start in the back and somewhere on the side in the back, maybe here. I'm not going to start at a point. I am going to lay my lace strip overlapping about 1/4 inch, and I won't start at the beginning. I'll start about 1 inch in, so I have a little flap to sew the end to when we get all the way around. And I don't want a lot of like roughly pleating, but pleating is necessary when you have all these angles and things in the cut here. So I'll start here, and about every 1.5 inches, I'm going to overlap about 1/2 inch. And at every point, make sure you have a pleat. So when I get here, I'll overlap and just keep going around until I get all the way to here, and I'll show you what I do. And I'm using a zigzag stitch, my largest zigzag. Okay, so I'm coming to a point, I feel like I have to do a little extra pleating, maybe 1, 2, 3 at that point. I'm afraid it'll pucker and not lay nice if I don't. Okay, so this is where I started. I left a little flap. And now I'm almost all the way around the skirt, and I have a bunch of lace left. So I have to cut some of this off and sew it onto here. So I am just going to kind of eyeball where that might be. I want to leave room for a little pleating. And for me, that would be about right here. Now, I have this and this. I need to sew those together. So I have to take it out of my machine in order to do that. So I'm going to back stitch and pull it out of my machine. Now you can sew these together, right sides together or wrong sides together. I'm doing wrong sides together, and I'm going to let that stitching show on the outside. It's a fun zigzag stitch, no biggie. Now my lace is sewn together, but I still have a gap right here. So I need to slide this back into my machine and go to where I ended stitching, go forward, back, and now I'm just going to do a little pleating and close up that hole. Okay. That's what that looks like. Now these little points are where the tablecloth turned. Okay, I just want to do one more thing to this before I set it aside and work on the top. And I want to make a couple little bows. Now I took cut two pieces of lace off that same tablecloth. They're each 60 inches long and about 3/4 to 1 inch wide, depending on the area. If you cut lace too thin, a lot of times it breaks, so test your lace. So I'm going to sew one strip of lace on the front and one on the back. And so I'm going to find the center of my lace piece, which is right there. And I made a little mark with my tailor's chalk right here. It's off center and a few inches above the lace ruffle. And I'm going to take the center of my lace strip, I won't do any pinning, and lay this on top of that chalk mark. And I'm going to my machine and I'm going to do just a couple zigzag stitches right there back and forth. Now I'm just going to tie a cute bow. Okay, this is what it looks like before dyeing. Now you can leave it just like that if you want. Um, the lace at the bottom, mine is raw in some areas. Now, a lot of people worry that your lace will be completely unraveled if you have a raw edge. I've never had that happen. It'll fray nice. Now, if you don't want a lot of fraying, you can run a zigzag stitch along the bottom of that lace ruffle, or you can hem it or serge it, whatever you want to do. But I am just going to let that fray and be a little tattered looking. Now I want to start on the top. I'll set this aside because they'll both be dyed together. So this is done for now. Okay, I just have a very simple white blouse, and I stuck a pin right here. I had tried it on. I want sort of an empire sort of waist. And so I stuck a pin to where it would hit where I wanted it to. And that's 9 inches up from the bottom. So I'm going to mark all the way around it, 9 inches, kind of like I did the skirt, and then cut that off. Okay. Now I'm going to line up the sleeves and cut 9 inches off the bottom of the sleeves. Now I have this little bitty shirt. So I'm going to add a flared sleeve and kind of a flared bottom. But before I get that fabric on there, I might as well decorate the rest of it, right? So I'm just going to put a little bit of lace on it and a little bit of a flower. Okay, so I'm going back to that lace that I used on the skirt, because if this dyes or doesn't dye, at least it will match the skirt if I'm using the same lace. Now I'm just cutting odd little shapes out of the lace. It's kind of a moon shape, and they'll all be a little bit different. This one is like 9 inches long, about 9 inches long and 2.5 wide, but I'm going to have them all different sizes, but similar shapes. And not too different inside. I don't want teeny ones or giant ones. I'll keep them similar. So I'm just going to cut a bunch of those out. Okay, so now I have a little pile of strange sized scraps. And then I cut 2 long strips of lace off that same piece. Mine are each 27 inches long and about 1.5 inches wide. Okay, now I want to sew all these lace pieces on. The first thing I want to do is kind of mark the center of my top like this, because it gets confusing when you're sitting at the machine and you have all this stuff going on. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to take these 2 scraps, well, strips, and I'll just kind of butt them up together like this. And I am going to sew them with a zigzag stitch right below my little V right here, because that stitch will be noticeable, but it'll be covered up with all the other pretty laces. That's why I want to do that first. So I'll go sew that on. Now the strips are sewn on. Remember, I'm using green thread because I'm dyeing it green. Now, these pieces, I am going to sew just in the middle. You know, maybe 3 or 4 inches. So what I do, might be kind of hard to explain because this is something I sort of made up and been doing for years, but it gives a nice ruffly look. So I will start at one side of this line, real close to it, go up and around, staying close to the edges, and then back down the other side of the line. And what I'll do is I'll take one of these pieces and start about here because I'm not sewing end to end. So I'll lay that about here and I'll do a zigzag stitch till I get to about here. And then I'll just kind of scooch that over to the side, grab my next piece, sew from here to maybe here. So I'll lay this down on top of that, sew to about here, and scooch that over and keep doing that all the way around. And I'll show you at the machine what that looks like too. Okay, isn't that cute? That's what that looks like. Now, these, I'm either going to tie into like a generous bow or let them hang and cut them shorter. But I don't know yet. I'm going to have to wait till I get everything on and see what I feel like doing with those. But I have them there for whatever I decide to do. Now I want to add a flower, just, to tie it in with the skirt, and I'll add just a flower or two to one side. Okay, so I'm using two just on one side of the shirt. I'm going to pin them and sew them just like I did the flower on the skirt. Okay, cute like that, isn't it? Now I want to add the ruffle to the sleeve and the one to the bottom of the top. Okay, I was going to use a linen tablecloth. I'm afraid that'll be a little bulky and heavy when it's pleated. So I'm going to use this dress. Now, this is way too small for me and kind of skimpy. I bought it for the bottom part of the dress. Super cute. And I'm going to use this on the shirt. Okay, how I determined that this dress was okay for that bottom ruffle is I laid my dress out. This is the bottom of the dress. And then I just laid my top over it. And this needs to be quite a bit bigger than the top. I don't want it super ruffly, so it doesn't have to be double the size. But it's about this much bigger, which will give me subtle, cute little pleats. I don't want a big poof right here. So I think that will be perfect. Now I want my ruffle to be 8.5 inches to hit sort of below the waistline of the skirt. Now maybe you want a tunic. You could cut a lot more off something like this. But I'm going 8.5 inches. Now I have a piece that looks like this, and now I'm going to attach it to the bottom of my shirt. Okay, how I attach the ruffle. I have my shirt right side out and my ruffle inside out because I want to put right sides together. So this is the bottom of my ruffle. I am going to slide my top inside like this, and the bottom goes over top. Now, I am going to pin this all together. Now, you can baste and shear it. I've done that, but I'll tell you, this way is just as fast as any for me because I've always done it this way, and so I'm pretty fast. So I'm just taking the side of my shirt, the side of my ruffle, and I'm going to pin it together. And I am going to find the side of my ruffle over here. Right there, and the side of my shirt, and I'm going to pin that together. Now, I'm going to find the center of my ruffle. I have to kind of lift it up to see. Okay, that's right there. And the center of my shirt, which is right there, and stick a pin. Now, I'm going to, between this pin and this pin, find the center of my ruffle, center of my shirt, and pin that. And these will just keep getting smaller and smaller until it's all completely pinned. Okay, now I have this all pinned. I'm going to sew it together. I'm going to use a fairly small straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and just go all the way around. Now I will have raw seams on the inside, and that's fine with me. This whole thing is sort of tattered and boho. When I sold, if I had any raw seams on the inside, I would disclose it. I would say some raw seams on the inside, see last photo. And I would take pictures. That way there's no surprises. And if they don't like it, they don't need to buy it. Okay, I'm going to go get this sewn. Okay. How cute is that? All right. So I'm going to do the arms the same way. Now the fabric on the dress is raw at the bottom. So the only thing different that I'm really going to have to do is add another little piece of trim. I might have enough eyelet trim left to do the sleeves at the bottom. I'll have to wait and see. But basically it'll be the same way. Okay, here's the bottom of my dress. It will be split between both sleeves. So the front part will be one sleeve, the back will be another. And I'm cutting 5.5 inches off the bottom. Okay, now I have that long strip off the bottom. I'm going to find the center and cut it in half, one for each sleeve. Now I have two pieces that look like this. I'm going to go to my machine, put right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and just run a stitch down the side so that I have a complete circle. Now I'm just pinning these two pieces to the sleeve exactly like I did the bottom ruffle. Right sides together and find the center of the sleeve, or the space on the sleeve, pin it all the way around till you have all your pleats. My sleeve's actually going to be quite a bit rufflier, which is good because I want that to be really flared. I didn't want the ruffle on the bottom of the shirt to be weirdly flared and make me look like an Oompa. Okay, sleeves so far. The ruffle I'm going to finish off the sleeve with is an eyelet ruffle from Thrifted Pillow Shams. Okay, I have 2 pillow shams. I'm going to start with one and see how far I get. So I am just going to cut this ruffle off, and I'm just cutting right above that band. I will sew on that band, and it's all nice and pleated for me. Now this will be a little raw and fray at the top because I didn't seam rip this off. Okay, I'm just going to overlap this, about between 1/4 and 1/2, depends on what it's acting like at my machine. And I'm just going to sew that all the way around that sleeve. Now I am going to do this one like I did the ruffle on the skirt, where I'm starting on the underside seam, and I am going to not start sewing at the very end. I'll come an inch in and start sewing right here. I think I'll use a zigzag stitch all the way around until I get back here. Cut it off, sew these together, sew the gap closed. Okay, here's what the sleeves look like. So flowy and fun. Okay, here are the two pieces. You know, sometimes it's these things you wake up in the morning thinking, I'll try that, that turn out to be some of the best stuff. So I am going to go dye these apple green. And you might be gasping right now. And I don't know what it's going to turn out like. Is the lace cotton? Will it dye at all? What color will the denim turn out? How muted are the flowers going to get? Are you still going to be able to see them? It's all a wonderful mystery, and we'll find out together. Okay, I'm dyeing in my washer. When I'm all done dyeing, I'm going to do a hot, soapy, empty load to clean my washer. I'm using table salt, 1 cup. Pour that in first. And then my apple green dye. So excited. Shake it up well. It tends to settle at the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to pour the whole bottle in. I have another bottle for backup in case I don't feel like the color is saturated enough, but I'm just going to start with 1. I am going to start my washer and let it fill up, and before it starts agitating, or right when it starts agitating, I'll put my clothes in. Okay, I'm going to put my clothes in, let that run a full cycle, and then I am going to lay them on a drying rack to dry. Okay, here it is. So fun. I've got some cowgirl boots on with it. I'll bring it in a little closer in a second so you can see more of the details. I just love this. What a difference, right? I want to talk about care instructions for a second, and I'm going to tell you how I would put them in a listing because I used to sell, and I know some of you sell. So I would put care instructions, dry clean, or machine wash on a gentle cycle in cold water, turn garments inside out and wash by themselves, line dry. Okay, I'm going to bring it in and let you see it a little better, and I thank you so much for watching.